The 2022 panic buying frenzy just continues to get worse all over the world. As supply chain problems compound and transportation costs rise uncontrollably, consumers have been rushing to hoard food and energy supplies before more shortages emerge. In Russia, the middle class is wiping out store shelves at record speed as Western sanctions disrupt shipping deliveries and push the price of everything to soar. Many nations in Europe are suffering from shortages of food and medicine, which is leading companies to ration food supplies to ensure inventories in an attempt to fight against panic buying. Meanwhile, in America, gas prices have jumped to such absurd levels that drivers cannot afford to panic buy anymore. Some of them are resorting to gas theft instead. There's a lot to cover in today's video, so please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to keep updated with the latest news. Russians are now suffering with crushing inflation as the effects of Western sanctions ripple through the economy and collapse the country's currency. The markets have recently become overwhelmed with panic buyers emptying grocery stores and shopping malls. Shoppers' panic is being fueled by the mass closure of stores as global brands decide to leave the Russian market amid the escalation of the conflict with Ukraine. As more and more companies announce shutdowns, prices on many products continue to surge, which is severely impacting the finances of the average Russian family. That's why consumers have been hoarding everything they can still find in stock, from medical devices to staple goods and electronics. Shoppers are snapping up every valuable item in their reach as the ruble plunges in value. The sanctions have blown a hole in Russia's economy, and shipping companies have reportedly been unable to deliver goods to the country's retailers. Several reports describe a widespread panic buying of food staples. Russians are also expecting shortages of imported goods and a cost of living crisis amid the crash of their currency. Prices of imported goods are already going through the roof. New cars made by foreign brands have experienced a 16% price surge over the past 3 weeks, according to the State Statistics Service. The price of TV sets climbed 20%, while vacuum cleaners rose 17% and smartphones 12%. According to Forbes, over the past week, demand for certain categories has soared by more than 120%, and the average energy and grocery bill rose between 27 to 70%. People are mainly investing in large items such as kitchens, appliances, flooring, something that requires a significant outlay, explained Marina Flytova, Deputy General Director of global home improvement store Leroy Merlin. It's a spike in panic demand because of expected shortages, highlighted a Moscow-based economist who asked not to be named. It's inflation of the middle class rushing to buy something. Inflation of the poor will follow. Since the beginning of the crisis, the cost of food products such as sugar, bananas, and tomatoes has increased more than 15%. And if Russians, who live in a country with one of the largest agricultural productions in the entire world, are experiencing food shortages, other nations that rely on Russian exports of grains and vegetable oils are going to face unimaginable challenges to feed their populations. As Jan Egeland of the Norwegian Refugee Council warned in a recent interview, serious supply shortages will hit poorer countries that are dependent on wheat from Ukraine and Russia. Somalia, for instance, imports 90% of wheat from the two countries. With wheat prices soaring and drought worsening, the number of people that cannot be fed will explode, he wrote. However, rich European countries aren't immune to the disruptions brought on by the conflict, and consumers are already suffering too. In a recent article published by the Financial Times, shoppers reported shortages of basic food supplies and medicine, while in Germany, trade groups are warning against Hamsterkauf, in other words, hamster shopping or panic buying. The last time European countries had seen such an extensive panic buying frenzy was after the health crisis impacted supply chains, causing local shortages that sent consumers rushing to stock up on toilet paper. Now, Russia's aggression in Ukraine has sparked a fresh wave of hoarding in European nations. In Italy, consumers are scrambling to find pasta and grain-based products. I bought 20 packs of pasta and several kilos of flour last week in preparation for shortages, said Sabrina Deledo, 50, from Lecco, north of Milan. We're also looking at converting our backyard into a vegetable garden and a hen house in order to be self-sufficient in case the conflict worsens and food supplies become scarce, she added. With supply chain bottlenecks aggravating and the memory of shortages still fresh on their minds, after witnessing the effects of the sanitary outbreak on global trade, Europeans are now panic buying and stockpiling food as uncertainty over the duration of the global strife continues to rise. The disruptions in Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, are likely to exacerbate shortages of cooking oils and animal feed that would be very difficult to substitute in the short term, according to industry analysts. Italy imports much of its wheat from Eastern Europe and about 80% of its sunflower oil from Ukraine, as well as large amounts of corn used to feed animals. The country is now seeing shortages of bread and meat as well, while prices reach extraordinary levels. A loaf of bread currently costs up to €8 per kilo in Milan. In November, it would have cost an average of €4.25, according to Coldiretti, the National Agriculture Trade Organization. Needless to say, consumers are not pleased with the situation. It's ridiculous that bread, which has always been poor people's food, has become a luxury item, complained Toledo, saying that she had stockpiled flour to bake her own and save money. At the same time, food rationing is becoming the main alternative for German grocers coping with declining supplies. They have been recently forced to introduce purchase limits and ration some staples such as cooking oil in an effort to prevent another round of Hamsterkäufe, the national slang for hoarding, which comes from the rodent's habit of stuffing its cheeks with food. Markets that were typically stable and well-stocked now have bare shelves and shortages of flour and cooking oils. One sign outside a penny supermarket in Frankfurt read, "Please show solidarity and think of your neighbors. Refrain from stocking up unnecessarily." The situation is escalating so rapidly that insiders are warning about panic buying on an industry level too. Global transportation costs are getting more and more expensive as oil prices soar above $100 per barrel. Interrupted logistics operations could lead to higher prices across the board for the global semiconductor market, explained Gaurav Gupta, the vice president of the technology and consulting firm Gartner. A wave of panic buying is now setting in, and that's having a significant impact on raw material supplies at a time inventories have already been shrinking. Gupta highlighted that panic buying was one of the major reasons for the onset of the ongoing semiconductor shortage, as it overstretched and deteriorated the supply chain further without bringing any advantages to buyers. Now, as companies hoard computer chips, the shortage is likely to hit a whole new level. The semiconductor supply chain is already strained for a variety of reasons. Ukraine is a major source of inert gases, such as neon required for the semiconductor lithography process, and any disruption in the supply of neon and other noble gases from the country could trigger more shortages and associated cost inflation, he said. Meanwhile, in Norway, people have been rushing to stockpile medicine, particularly iodine tablets, used to combat the effect of radiation, as they worry about a potential nuclear conflict. In recent weeks, over 1.7 million tablets have been sold in the country, and pharmacies don't even know when they will be able to restock their supplies. The pills can counteract the effects of radiation poisoning, but taking too many can be extremely dangerous for people's health. In the United States, Americans are panic buying potassium iodine tablets too. According to CNN, manufacturers of the medication in the U.S. have recorded rapidly depleted inventories recently in light of Russia's retaliation to Western sanctions. The enormous increase in demand has led some online sellers to price gauge customers looking to buy these pills. Packs that typically sell for around $14 are now on eBay for $150, with the manufacturer's website listing them as out of stock. U.S. consumers have been in a rough patch since the start of the health crisis, when nationwide lockdowns prompted millions of shoppers to buy copious amounts of toilet paper, water, and other necessities. Now, as the pandemic enters its third year and the world witnesses a global strife of devastating proportions, big food retailers are still struggling to keep up with increasing demand with limited supply. According to The Washington Post and Fox Business, right now there are nationwide shortages of pet food, computer chips, motorcycles, building materials, including lumber and brick, blood, many dairy and meat products, eggs, maple syrup, potatoes, coins, alcohol products, toilet paper, and of course gasoline. And even though authorities are urging shoppers not to engage in panic buying while stores are imposing purchase limits, Americans are expecting shortages to become more widespread, and they've been stockpiling before products become unavailable again. John Crutchfield, Killeen's Economic Development Corporation director, argues that conditions in the U.S. supply chain have never stabilized. Most of what I have seen, he says, indicates that the supply chain has not fully recovered from the effects of last year's winter storm, coupled with the health crisis. There is no question, he continues, that government actions to deal with these events, such as shutting down economies in various places, exacerbated the situation, Crutchfield said. And it seems that U.S.-led sanctions imposed by the federal government on the Russian economy are also having huge consequences for American drivers. In previous videos, we reported that drivers were panic buying gas all across the nation, some filling plastic containers with gasoline in an act of total desperation to ensure supplies before prices skyrocketed. This week, the national average price for a gallon of gas surpassed $4.30, and the situation has gotten so out of hand that instead of panic buying gasoline, people have been stealing it. As the price of gasoline really spirals out of control, gas theft is on the rise, reported the AAA. In North Carolina, nearly 400 gallons of gas was stolen from a station this week. CNN reported more than 15 cars pulled up and filled up their tanks after business hours, after someone used a special device allowing them to bypass the payment system. Over the course of about 45 minutes, $1,600 worth of gas was stolen from the Busy Bee grocery store and gas station in High Point, said owner Hardik Patel. I've been in business for 15 years and owned other gas stations. I've never seen something like this. It wasn't free, they were stealing, lamented Patel in the interview. In Texas, a group of thieves stole over $5,000 worth of diesel fuel in a family-owned gas station in Houston. The manager said that the thieves targeted the business's diesel fuel on 4 days last week, stealing more than 1,000 gallons. The thefts allegedly occurred on consecutive days in which the national gas price average repeatedly broke all-time highs. He revealed that a dark-colored van was seen parking over the underground storage containers on the dates of March 8th to the 10th, days in which the national average price for a gallon of gas broke all-time records, and siphoned 360 gallons each day. They hit us like the days we were paying like a real premium on the diesel fuel, he told the outlet. Altogether, it was about $5,000. On top of that, in Pennsylvania, one woman who did not want to be identified said that she and her neighbor were victims of a recent theft. she exposed that someone drilled a hole right into her gas tank. A home security camera caught the alleged thief on the act as he walked around her car with a drill and a 5-gallon bucket. AAA analysts said that offenders used to siphon gas to steal fuel, but now newer vehicles have an anti-rollover valve, so thieves are now drilling right into the tank. In Atlanta, local officers recently arrested a man believed to be behind a series of costly gasoline thefts across the city. Several Atlanta residents were reporting on social media that someone was stealing gasoline out of tanks. The offender was also drilling a hole in the bottom of the tank and letting it drain out, leaving behind thousands of dollars worth of damage in the process. These are definitely crazy times, and people are acting out of panic and desperation. As the price of gasoline continues to go up, this will probably encourage even more theft. People's rush to hoard food and energy supplies will also make it more difficult for ordinary families to afford their grocery and energy bills. The world has effectively entered a full-blown energy and supply chain crisis, and we hope you are prepared for the new normal, because we're about to see absolutely unprecedented things in the months ahead. Thank you for watching. We look forward to reading your comments below this video.